Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, loaded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is loaded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
That's why you can't, little boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Alan.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In. Starting on time today, I said it was going to be 7, but I got my hair cut and I shaved just so I could look pretty for Jed, and I got it done on time.
Oh, is that why you did it?
That's why I did it. I want you to be proud of me, Jed.
Oh.
I want you to not feel like I'm bringing your image down. Yeah, but we're here. We're here to have a good time. It's going to be a nice, calm one today, guys. It's going to be a peace one, a happy one, because we're talking about the happiest millionaire. But before that, Jed, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Today is one of the days that I truly appreciate why we do this stream.
Yes.
It's an implicitly positive stream, or at least we try to do it. We're always having fun, even if we're not as big of fans as the movie, if the occasion arises. But it's always about celebrating the past of cinema. And this is the day that I could really use that. So I'm excited to jump into this. And I don't know how many thoughts we're going to have. I don't know if this is going to be a long discussion or anything. It's probably just going to be us going, oh, yeah, I love that part. Oh, yeah, I love that part. That was so sweet. Like, it's not a complicated movie. It's not a movie that you can really discuss. But it's a movie that you have to love.
It's the themes that I think we're going to discuss. Mm-hmm. What original was. Now, I think all week long I was saying the wrong year was made. It was made in 67. For some reason, I kept saying 54.
Oh, I thought it was 50s, too.
It says 67. I just checked it because I wanted to make sure. I wanted to line up the cast, even though I know the cast. I wanted to line everybody up. But yeah, this is going to be might not be a long episode tonight because again, we're not going to be digging deep. We're going to be talking about probably thematic things, character portrayals, this and that, and the quality because this is our first musical, Jed.
Mm-hmm.
Show. First time doing musical, which means now we can get into some really serious, true classic musicals. But this is a happy-go-lucky one. Before that, hail and howdy to both chats on mine and Jed's channel. We guys hope you enjoyed the show. Hit the like button, subscribe to everybody's channels, and let's get into it. Happiest Millionaire. Without beating around the bush, this is when Disney was Disney. Plain and simple. This is Walt Disney still in charge of his empire. Well, building his empire at this point. And there's something magical about this movie. I'll say it flat out. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you started with John dancing his way to the
Biddle Mansion,
to the building mansion, it pulls you in instantly. And let's be also honest here: musicals are not for everybody.
No,
They're not. Some people look at musicals and go, "Why are these people singing all the time? This is silly."
In general, I'm one of those people. This is one of the only musicals that I truly enjoy and can watch at any time.
I think I know why too. I think I know why. I was thinking about this because I think yesterday was the first time, or was it Thursday? No, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. Yesterday was the first time I ever critically watched this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching this movie since I was a little kid. This was a movie I would go into the video store before.
You catch it in theaters when it came out?
No, I'm not that asshole. I go into store. This is something I would rent over and over and over and over again because it just made me happy. It's I hate to use this term, but it's a safe place movie for me, where there's nothing offensive, there's nothing wrong in this movie in terms of its messaging and all that, and the performances are great. When did you first stumble upon this gem?
I watched it as a kid at my grandmother's house. It was one of her favorite movies, so she showed it to us, and I loved it. I haven't seen it in probably like a good 7, maybe 10 years, but I remember having a lot of strong childhood memories of it and just loving it. Like at that age, kids don't want to watch old films. Kids don't want to watch classic, especially musicals. Like it was weird how much as a kid, myself, my siblings, my cousins, we all loved this movie. It's very odd. Even today, I'd like, it's what the hell were we thinking? But yeah, it's implicitly positive associations with me. I couldn't help but smile as a kid watching it for the first time. I can't help but smile in pretty much every scene as an adult watching it.
Because it's meant to make you love those things that are supposed to be good in life: family, friends, romance. Even though it's a kind of flowery romance in this movie, it's still a romance all the same between Cordy and Angie, but it's wholesome.
Very wholesome.
I think that's the thing that people forget Disney used to be: wholesome, not pushing weird shit on you or weird shit on your kids. This is a movie that had adult themes portrayed in a way a child could understand it. Because, like you, I watched this as a child, single digits, watched this, and understood generally what was going on. And I didn't feel as though there were themes or concepts that were going over my head. It's very easy to understand. There is. Well, okay. The one thing I didn't understand is I was too young to understand that this is taking place in the middle of World War I. That I was too young to understand. But I understood that there's a good family structure here. That parents care for their children. That two people of an appropriate age have fallen in love and want to get married. And then the standard movie hijinks that surround a marriage trying to take place. And then hopes and dreams are a very big part of this as well. Something that Disney used to promote, and they just don't anymore. And it also kind of helps that you have what is frankly a star-studded cast of the time and leading into the future.
Oh, you see, I've never seen a single other movie with any of these actors before.
There's
not a single one that I've seen in anything else.
You got to understand, Fred McMurray had been America's dad with My Three Sons. He was a beloved icon of the era. He was Mr. Good Guy. He was your dad, and people adored him. So to
he
roll
plays
him
such a great dad in this film.
Oh yeah. I mean, Mr. Biddle is just fantastic. I mean, there's a line I'll get to in a second when we start discussing Anthony Biddle. But so Fred McMurray, beloved and an icon in TV and cinema. So at the time, and then Greer Garson, a classic lady of cinema, her own lineup of hit movies for decades.
Which one is she?
She was the wife, Cordelia.
Okay.
And then this is the introduction, the very first movie of the lovely Leslie Ann Warren, who would go on to have a career for decades. Most famously, for a lot of people known, played Miss Scarlet in Clue. So I mean, that and had it just great. And of course, she was hot for years. I haven't seen her in a while, but she held it high and tight for a long time. Leslie Ann Warren. But it's one of those eras where the multi-talented actors were on full display who could sing, who could act, who could do all this stuff.
Talented people. We need talented people in Hollywood again.
So your stars are great. Now, John Davison played Angie Duke. I don't remember if he did other stuff, but he's to me the weakest link in the movie, honestly. He's the weakest link.
If it weren't for his amazing smile, he would definitely be farther down my list. But his smile is pretty captivating.
Yeah, he pulls it off. So he is the weakest link. But if that's your weakest link, that's not terrible.
Yeah, you're doing good.
All right, so let's dive in as we are wont to do. Let's talk about the general story. Essentially, this takes place between Philadelphia and New York, mostly in Philadelphia, where the Biddles are old money. That's a big thing about this movie. We have old money versus new money.
Yeah, now, the third act, that is very, very important.
So between Aunt Mary and Angie's mom, that is a fantastic. Basically, it's a bitch off. Who's the big?
That feels so random, that musical number, but I love it. There's a lot of musical numbers that are like, is there a reason we're doing this? Like, I feel like this movie could be cut down. It's nearly 3 hours long.
It is. It's long.
It's a little bloated, but
it's I
still love those scenes as much as I think there could be some trimming. The There Are Those song is great.
Well, it's a theme: classic old money versus new money, and the nouveau riche and the old guard, and how they clash, because that was a real thing. The old guard disrespected nouveau riche in the 19 teens, because this just takes place between 1916 and 1917, when the World War I is going on and the U.S. is getting ready to go into it, and it's a subplot to the movie, but it's still there. But nouveau riche versus old guard, it's a very big thing, because you had the old guard who had their money for generations, and their displays were subtle but effective, and the nouveau riche who just had to constantly throw it out there. Look at us. We have all this money now. You have to accept us in your stratosphere of the rich and powerful. And it's a subtle, good display of Aunt Mary versus Angie's mom, where they're just going at each other. And then, very funny, 5 minutes later, they're siding with each other when the wedding breaks down, which is funny. But the story is basically about Anthony Biddle, who is a millionaire of old money means, lives in Philadelphia, his family's been there for generations. I'm not sure where the money came from, though. I never quite.
Yeah, they never talk about it. They don't act like they own a business or anything. Like, how are they maintaining their wealth? Yeah. We never get into any of that.
It must just be maintained through something. We don't know, because we know that the Dukes are tobacco, flat out tobacco, which surprised me, because the tobacco trade had been going on for 200 years, over 200 years at this point in the Americas. So they must have been new to the game to get it. So.
Yeah, new to the game, but there was a big boom around that time, and later on, more towards the 50s, with the advent of just how widespread advertising became in the 20th century. Advertising changed on its head in the 20th century.
Yeah.
And tobacco and cigarette companies led the way with innovative new advertising techniques. So there was suddenly a lot of money in it, because with Lucky Strikes, I think it was very much like to be a gentleman, you have to smoke Lucky Stars. Like, they're the first ones who tried to that had widespread success in that type of advertising. So yeah, the tobacco has seen a resurgence in the 20th century.
So that's why, because of radio, and then a few cinema was becoming widespread, where they would have news spots in the theaters and commercials, and then about 20 years later, 30 years later, here comes television. So yeah, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah, radio would probably be one of the biggest reasons that advertising changed so significantly,
and print media, because then suddenly print media skyrocketed with availability and material.
Yeah, once the railroad system was sophisticated enough, you could get news around the country relatively quick, on par to back then. And then, of course, the telegram system was more advanced, and telephones were starting to be prevalent.
Because right now, telegraph is still going on. This is still, telephones are still a new thing. They were newer. They were starting to be prevalent in America. They hadn't quite made it over to Europe yet at this time. So the telephone is still relatively new, even though we see it used all around in the Biddle household. But that's a sign of their wealth.
Yeah,
that they have phones. dedicated. They have multiple lines in that house. They have the phone booth, and then they have a phone in another room. So that it's the subtle signs of the wealth if you understand the times.
Mm-hmm.
But the Biddles are wealthy, and they have a bit of an air about them. They are, while they're old money, at least Anthony's household, they're old money, but they're eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
They're an eccentric
They're very eccentric. And it seems like most of his life he spent just exploring, getting new experiences. Like, I love the speech he gives. I believe it's to Angie when he talks about his near-death experience. He realized, like, how valuable life was. And he, as the great line where he's like, that's the funny thing about life. The more you take, the more of it you have.
Yeah.
And just that mentality. And we see little snippets of that. It's like, oh, yeah, I was down with the Native Americans in Florida learning to hunt gators.
It's like they never hear you as you travel down the road.
And then you give them the mating call.
Yeah.
Like, he's clearly been this eccentric man for a long time, and that's what he spends most of his time doing, is just messing around.
But
getting
he's
new
also,
experiences.
But at the same time, he gives back to his community. He's not just...
Oh, absolutely.
He helps the homeless. He gives them purpose. His whole thing is Bible class while boxing.
Mm-hmm.
That's his thing. And there's one of the best lines that Fred McMurray gives is a line that is rare these days. I believe in two things: God and the United States of America. When he's talking to John the first time,
mm-hmm.
and it's just
he repeats that several times.
Yeah, you don't get that these days
Mm-mm.
because that's. First of all, whether you're a person of faith or not, back then, faith was common and it was
mm-hmm.
expressed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and God-fearing people. Mm-hmm. And that is what it did. And it was a common thing and nobody questioned it. Now, those who are against the kind of unity that faith brings, they hate that mm-hmm. because to them, it is an affront to their ideological religion in current day. So, having religion on display, something you'll get, and then of course, I love America. Yeah, many stories in the past several years have centered around people becoming controversial because they chose to say "I love America" or were pushing back when something said, "Why are you changing? God bless America," or "Life," mm-hmm. or "Truth, Justice, and the American Way." If we're going to quote Superman, I mean that was something that was never questioned. No, maybe because it's the middle of the Cold War. There's the movie. Yes, this movie's taken place in 1916, but it's made in the 1960s mm-hmm. at the peak of Cold War tensions.
I didn't realize it was that late. Yeah, so the Cuban Missile Crisis wouldn't have been far off from this film.
Yeah,
and the tensions that accompanied it.
So back then, everybody is of course nationalistic, rah rah USA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people they hate it. There are people out there who actively hate it. So the themes of this movie, two of them, faith and God bless America, are offensive to some people. So it wouldn't make it. But that's why this movie hits home with me, especially because its tenets ring true. That should still be celebrated.
Well,
go ahead.
They start off very soon with that mentality. In virtually the first scene that we meet Mr. Biddle, I love that conversation when Cordy's introduced, and he's like, she's like, "Father, why have you been shaving?" "I wasn't been shaving. And since when is my finger? Since when do I shave my finger?" And is that whole conversation about the finger being near the face when she is shaving, and then they randomly just break out in songs like,
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Your family, the Bible, and love. What's wrong with that? The flag above the Bible and love.
You bring that up. You bring up the song. Within the first 15 minutes, you get 3 musical pieces,
mm-hmm.
at least. You get John's introduction, virtuosity, mm-hmm. and then you get what's wrong with that, and then a few minutes later, you get the brothers come in and about Cordy and the boyfriend there with her got dynamite up her sleeve. Here's why I think you appreciate this as a musical, especially if you know you're not a fan of a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about show don't tell all the time. We talk about recently. You had us on Writer's Corner just last week talking about exposition.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, every song is exposition.
Yeah.
But what it's doing is doing it in a talented, interesting way where it's giving us the window into everybody's mind. and introducing us to these characters in a fun and just attractive way where instantly you connect with them. I mean, after Cordy has her first suitor driven off by her brothers, who are summarily booted from the movie. They're gone.
Yeah, they had one good scene and then that's it.
I thought my memory had them being in it more, but I guess childhood memory didn't register. I mean, now I had watched this twice in the past year because I had watched this when I was sick last summer as kind of a thing to make me feel better. But up until that point, I had forgotten that her brothers were just gone. They were out of the movie. But after she loses her date, she goes up to her room and she sings her song about.
That's immediately the song I thought of when you mentioned this exposition.
I'm a girl and I want to be treated like a girl, or am I the tomboy, essentially? And she wants to be loved, but she also wants the strength that her father is imbued in her. And it's an instant window into Cordy's mind, the thought process.
Well, I think that is, just like you said, how relevant this movie is from, a sociological standpoint in the modern day. This song in particular is a lot about puberty. It's a lot about her growing out of being a tomboy and becoming a woman. And as we know, tomboys are looked on very differently nowadays. Yeah. Where people think, a young woman or a girl expressing interest in male things must mean that they want to be male.
And that's the thing. She's not expressing a male thing. She's expressing something in boxing that is physical fitness. And at the same time, teaching her discipline. Because her father's lessons in both the Bible and boxing taught her to be a strong, independent woman. And she displays it throughout the whole movie. But because even though she has a very elegant mother, she is her father's daughter. And that's an interesting thing.
Well, even the mom mentions, I've raised very few objections to the way that Cordy was raised. And it's clear that he has the bigger influence on Cordy throughout her life.
And it's fascinating that even though she has an elegant mother, she didn't pick up early female elegance or traits on how to behave around men. So she has to talk to her when she convinces her dad to let her go to boarding school. She has that talk with her roommate about how do you flirt.
Pum pum.
Pum.
I asked Rachel if she's ever done that before, and she looked at me like like I was insane.
Like, just leave. Just go.
Just go.
Go. Come back in 10 minutes. Let's pretend you didn't ask that question. But it's fascinating that they're not only doing that, but it's an embracing of womanhood and understanding that you need to. How do I put this without sounding like a dumb man? Because I haven't experienced my own womanhood. Despite rumors, I have not experienced womanhood. Yeah, I've experienced womanhood, but I haven't experienced womanhood. But it's God damn it. I don't know. All right, I'm gonna say it flat out. Going through puberty and understanding the changes your body have gone through, and you're desiring a man, and you want a man. You don't want to be a lonely spinster. All right, that's what this is right here. She likes dudes, and she doesn't know how to deal with a dude because her father has been her idol, but it's her father. And because this isn't a sick situation, she's not fantasizing about her father. She wants something different from that. And her brothers don't count because they're gone from the movie. So she goes out there into the world at her aunt's party and has interactions with all these dudes. And because she's not as flirtatious and perhaps a little more open-minded, spoken-minded, kind of way I want to put it. She's expressing her thoughts. They're off-put by her, the dudes at that party. Except for Angie, who sees her and instantly goes, "Hey, I saw this chick pretending to do barum-pum-pum in the hallway there, and her eccentricity intrigues me." So he does the Chad thing and goes and says, "Hi, you're hot. Want to dance?" Or of course he bails her out at one point.
Yeah.
But, And
with the dude who got so offended she didn't realize he was talking about Yale playing Harvard at a football game when he says, "We're playing Harvard next week." What?
I know what is the sports ball thing you're talking about. She knows the sweet science. That's what she knows. She doesn't know the sports ball. But you got that. Let's roll into Angie coming in. Her suitor, not would be suitor. Her suitor. Her. He just dives right in, no fear.
No.
And
which I think is very important with the contrast that we see him later on in the movie. Like, this seems to be one of the first times he's out on his own, similar to how this is the first time Cordy's really out on her own. And he's expressing himself for the first time, being honest about his hopes and his dreams, and feeling like he can become his own person. And then we see him back with his family later on in the movie, especially his mother.
He's a mama's boy.
He's such a mama's boy. Like, whatever she says goes. And it creates a problem for Cordy because she thought he was this independent dreamer, and that's who she fell in love with, and realized that could change at the turn of a hat. That's not what she was hoping for. That's not what she was interested in.
It's as though there's a character story woven into this, where these characters have to go through trials where things aren't working out the way they thought they would, or perhaps outside influences affect how they interact with the world. Isn't that incredible?
It's very incredible.
And then they have real reactions where this isn't the man I fell in love with. Later on in the movie, when they're engaged and the wedding's a couple days away and they have the meltdown at the party, the whole, wait, we're moving to the Ozarks? You're going to work their office job? I thought we were going to Michigan and Detroit, where you could be a car inventor. What? Because remember, this is 1916. The automobile is a new thing. Ford doesn't exist yet in this moment. There's no Detroit.
It's so new, he didn't even think that cars of any color were possible yet. Yeah. That's how you know it's early on.
Yeah. Well, remember, with Ford, it's you get black and you get black. And it had to be black. It had to be black. With Ford, you get the Model T. That's all you get. But that's the thing. It was the new but it's representation of his dream, where he wanted to get out there and he was hopeful, and even though at first Cordy has no time for cars. None at all. She's like, why do you always talk about cars? You're boring me. What do you like to do anything else? No, he is actually obsessed about cars. He lives, dreams, sleeps. Everything for Angie was cars. And now that's her first thing where I don't know if I can be okay with this, but then he properly, through song, reveals to her his inner workings, and we get exposition that makes us understand, and they connect over hopes and dreams. And that's what she falls in love with. A man who has a hope, who has a dream, who's inspired by something, was passion. And I think that's what made her fall in love, because she saw the same passion in him that she sees in her father. Now, I'm not saying it's, again, not a woman wanting her dad or anything. I'm saying,
that's become too prominent of an assumption these days. Most healthy child parental relationships garner the child to think, hey, this is my role model. I love the traits that he has. In this case,
the positive aspects.
The positives, it's nothing Freudian, or is at least what people interpret to be Freudian. And we're so obsessed with like the daddy issues these days that any time this happens, like you're talking about, we have to clarify this isn't some sort of daddy issue.
It's unfortunate we have to clarify that.
Absolutely.
That when this movie was made, it was never even a thought process. But now in modern current day, we unfortunately have to clarify this isn't a daddy issue thing, which current day Hollywood loves to constantly push on us. No, this is somebody who was raised in a positive, loving environment. And she sees a passion in this man, this young man, this virile guy who has a dream, a love for something. She's seen that before because she grew up around it. Her father, who has a passion for exploration, a passion for new things, who has an open mind to the world. That kind of passion. And that's what realizes, hey, look, this is somebody I can connect with because he shares a trait that I have, passion and love for life, because that's what his desire to become an automobile man in Detroit reflects, a love for life. And that's why they work. And in the end, that's what saves their relationship at the very end, because it takes a little monkeying by the other parties in the movie for it to happen. But Angie realizes in order to be his own man, he does have to not rely on his family. Now, I say that, but let's be honest. Both he and Cordy, neither were cut off.
No, absolutely
the
not.
The money is still there. The millions upon millions both their families have are still there. Yes, they're going to go off and make their own life, and they're going to do it without their family there because we get that final moment between the Biddles where Anthony's going, "Hey, let's go traveling. Yeah, let's go visit Angie and Cordy." And Cordelia goes, "No."
It's like, give them a little time to get settled.
Yeah. They have not been cut off, and that's one of the small little criticisms I will have. These yes, they're going off to make a life and be independent, but they're by no means lacking in needs.
Mm-hmm.
They will have access to their family's wealth to get started. So that's Cordy and Angie. You want to add anything to Cordy and Angie before we jump around a little more?
Not particularly. We covered it pretty well. Their relationship isn't complicated. It's not something that we really can dive into to an inordinate amount, but it's a very sweet romance that, is the center plot line.
And it's age appropriate. He seems to be in his 20s. She's 17, 18, I think. Yeah. At this time. So it's age
I think he's already
time.
Out of college. But
yeah, because
it's pretty normal for the era, as far as I'm aware.
It's normal for the era, and it was a natural thing. He asked a girl out, and they went on dates, and then he asked her to marry him after time. That's I love this, Jed. I love it when a movie shows you passage of time. Yes. They show you going through the seasons. They were dating for quite a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Quite so that period of time. That's enough back then, where they got to know each other. Now, of course, he did break the golden rule. He didn't ask her father's permission first. That was still a thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
Asking,
and they didn't even bring that up. That surprised me.
Yeah,
that he never got upset about that. I mean, he got
upset. He just got upset for
they didn't actually talk. Yeah, he got upset, but not specifically about not asking for permission.
Yeah, but there was no. Usually back then, you still ask for the blessing before you broach the subject of marriage. Then again, I think they might have jumped over that in order to do the amusing dinner scene where Anthony Biddle, Mr. Biddle, goes over the top in super overprotective dad. And hey, you know what? Every dad in history. So you're porking my little girl, huh?
Jeez. Basically. and I love that whole sequence of the film, especially with how Angie earns his respect, because that was a big thing is with how overprotective or protective Mr. Biddle was, he needed to make sure that someone could protect his little girl. That was his chief priority. And the moment that Angie tossed him and was teaching him jujitsu, he's like, all right, this guy can take care of himself. He can protect my daughter. And that was very much a thing back then. And for centuries is you give your blessing of marriage to a man who can protect your little girl and take care of her.
Later on, there's a moment where he does another rendition of What's Wrong with That, where she's asleep in the car on his shoulder.
That's a beautiful
And he's talking about how can she's grown up so much, and I want to protect her. What's wrong with that? And I don't want to let her go. What's wrong with that? She's my little girl. But the whole movie is the actual progression of understanding that she is her own woman now. And that's one of those great moments between Cordy and Anthony towards the end where he says, I'm turning your life over to you. He literally says, I'm turning your life over to you now. Mm-hmm. You've proven that you have your own mind, your own ambitions, your own desires. And there is a man out there, like you said, can protect you and take care of you. Mm-hmm. And I'm ready to let you go, even though I hate every moment of making that decision. Because let's be honest, every father, even though I am not a father, I still hope to be one day, every father still sees their child as the child. Mm-hmm. The thing that's barely 2 feet tall that needs you to do everything for them. It never leaves. It never stops. Even though I myself will say all the time to my own mother, stop. Don't be mom right now. Just stop. And then I get the response, you never stop. It doesn't end. So it's a parental thing. And the movie gets that across in a beautiful, and I return to this phrase, wholesome way again. Without any sketchiness, without anything weird. And it just leaves you going, yeah, I feel good about that. And what do we get out of this too? What is missing in so many family narratives these days, Judd?
Good father,
good dad, exactly. We get this is while this is also a love story between Cordy and Angie. This is also a good dad story.
Absolutely. I would say that's probably more important than the romance element. I would say that the main plot line of the film is a father coming to terms with his daughter growing up.
Yeah.
I would say that would be the core one that includes all the different plot lines, that everything branches out from there.
Yep. And it is something that needs to be constantly reminded today. Good dads make strong daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I'm not doing that just to be facetious or anything. I'm being very serious with that. A strong father figure, a dad who's around, makes a daughter who understands what a strong male figure looks like, and therefore they will make better choices when looking for a potential mate. They're not going to choose a goddamn beta male or some dysfunctional piece of shit who will harm them. They grew up with a man in their life that supported them and protected them, did everything possible to make sure they grew up safe and sound, and they learned those lessons and they know what it looks like to be protected, and they can recognize that in a potential mate. And that's what this movie, like all good dad movies, do. Good dads raise good daughters and good sons, even though sons are not a thing in this. But
not relevant in this.
Not relevant from the good dad, good son. Sometimes a good son can still come out of a mama's boy situation, but he needed the attention of strong men to become a man. Angie needed the attention of Anthony Biddle. He needed the slight nudging from John to not do something stupid, because yes, he was drunk at the time. But
was his father present in his young life? Because we only ever talk about his mother's influence. I'm sure like he didn't leave or anything, but like, did he die when?
I basically think he died. I'm pretty sure he died.
Because Angie seems to have a lot of feminine influence on him for the majority of his life. So Mr. Biddle needed to, be hard with him a little bit, show him how to be a role model almost for like, this is what a
remember that line
should be.
Right before he does the judo flip, where they're getting ready to box. He says, Cordy says, "Are you feeling okay?" And basically, Angie says, "Yeah, I'm feeling crazy. You know what? This is the perfect place to feel crazy. I'm feeling good about this. I'm liking this.
Have you lost your mind?" "Yes, I believe I have, and I feel right at home."
It's that, you know what it was? That's a surge of masculine adrenaline right there. And with it was funny. The women are going, "What are you guys doing?" And the men are going, "Don't worry, we got this. This is how it works. This is guy time. This is how men do things. We're going to have tests of strength. We're going to see what's going on here." And that's a guy thing. And what it did is it stirred the masculinity in Angie right there. And it also then, when he displayed that masculinity, earned the respect of Anthony Biddle. And that's what Corey told him to do. She says, "Get in his face. Make him listen to you. Even if he's right, make him listen to you. He wants to be challenged, because that's the only way you're going to get through to him." But then she doesn't realize that the challenge will also mean a little bit of physical there. Well,
she does say, he asked, "What if he hits me?" "Well, then hit him back." She does say to do that.
Surprised that it goes that far, because let's be honest. That's the female reaction. Why are you guys doing this? Even though I said it, suddenly she realized, wait, I didn't actually mean it. Don't do it.
I was talking in metaphor.
Yes, exactly. Anthony Biddle's story, Mr. Biddle, Fred McMurray. It is the core of the story, because it is called The Happiest Millionaire. He's happy for a reason, because he has a good family, he has a good life, and he's not afraid of anything he does. This is a man who owns alligators in the house,
but does overreact when he's got a scratch on his finger.
Yeah. Well, that's the eccentricity, I think. The alligators are there for pure humor.
Absolutely.
George and the other. How many? The other 15? I think said there were 16.
I think there's 12 total.
12. Okay, 11. Okay, 11. When they get frozen, that is just
comic relief.
It's comic relief.
It's hilarious, but ultimately pointless.
Dead. What I love, though, is how Cordelia Biddle, Mrs. Biddle, just takes all of this in stride.
Oh yeah. Just casually accepts everything that happens.
Yeah, I mean, when she first enters, when John is getting introduced to the family,
Mm-hmm.
It just flows in. Oh, you're the new butler. Okay, great. Go do this, do that. Does it, no problem. Watches all this shit going on. Zero shits given. It's like, oh, another day in the Biddle household. And what I love is, and that is also, it's the performance of Greer Garson, and it's also that moment where little things added that a classically trained actress can both emote in both physical and dialogue. That one moment after the first dance routine, she comes home, there's a little Irish, tiny little Irish jig.
Does that?
And she goes upstairs. It's like, oh yes, it works, and it's pulled off. And then through the whole movie, is calm and collected. Never once goes Karen on any.
Even when the wedding falls apart, even when everyone's screaming, she's always in control.
Yeah, her response to the engagement. I'm interested to see what he looks like. That's her response. Not, oh my God, she's getting married. You have to start planning the wedding. No, it's. I hope he's good looking. I'm sure he's good looking. It's such a nice change of pace from modern day Karen bullshit.
Oh yeah, both parents were mature adults that were interesting and had good relationships. There wasn't one that was put up as this crazy person. Like, it was just a very balanced. No bad guy. Yeah, there's the closest thing to a bad guy I would say in the entire film is Angie's mom, and she's not actually a bad guy. She's just misguided.
She's overly protective of her only son, and also influenced by what we talk about, the nouveau riche style of things, where she feels like she has to constantly put on the show and express her wealth and influence. And it carries over to her son, who she wants to be the well-crafted image of their wealth and power and influence. And so there is no bad guy in this. The bad guy is misunderstandings. That's the bad guy.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah, and it's human nature, and that's why it works. And so on. Of course, we start the movie. We're going back time. We start the movie through the eyes of John. Let me get his last name right. Let me get right here. John Lawless from Ireland. And here's, through John, we get another important theme. America, the land of opportunity. And you have to remember, those will be saying, why is he excited to be a butler? You people have to remember, those of you who have watched the likes of Downton Abbey have to understand, in the early 20th century, the going to work in service was still a big deal. To be in service to a wealthy.
It's still a life of virtual luxury. Living in a house like that, having those nice clothes, like there's still benefits to it. Yeah. And it was his way of working across the pond.
It was a respectable field because you were working, you did a job, you earned a living, and you were attached to the powerful. And you were then expected to represent them. If you watch Downton Abbey, when you in that world, the help is supposed to reflect the honor and the dignity of the family they work for. Now, it just so happens in America, there, especially with the case of the Biddles, you want to reflect the eccentricity. Well, John Lawless fit right in.
He definitely fit in. And I love a lot of that stuff when it comes to his view of America, especially with the Irish song he does. Like at the very beginning of the movie, he's like, I'm excited to be in the land of America, the land of opportunity. Yep. I want to be an American. And then in the Irish song, he's like, yes, I'm very looking forward to being a citizen when I can, but I'll always be Irish. Like, come and share.
I'll always be Irish.
Because that's how I began.
Yes, it's great. And you just said an important thing there. Wants to be a citizen. Wants to earn his place to be an upstanding member of the nation, of the country, to abide by its rules. That is something that has also been forgotten in a lot of media today, where they want to do allegories of, oh my God, let the immigrants come in. Guess what? They've been coming here for a very long time, and they did it legally and with purpose to get real jobs, make lives, and to integrate into society. Not be. That's why it was called a melting pot. Not the stupid.
They weren't asked to forget where they came from. The Biddles were not like, oh, you got to get rid of your Irish accent, get rid of all your Irish stuff. They're like, hey, we want to learn how you.
Accent. That's why
Teach us.
America was built on literally, as I said, the melting pot where all these different cultures and ideals come together and melt into one unit that is stronger. Not this stupid tossed salad metaphor they indoctrinate the kids now with. Oh, it's still all separate, and you have to. No. You integrate. And I use this word not as a joke because of my Star Trek love. You need to assimilate.
Mm-hmm.
You need to integrate into the society, become one of it.
And that's still a two-way street. It's not assimilate and forget everything where you came from. Assimilate and give everyone else the best parts of your culture as well.
Yeah. John Lawless is a beautiful immigrant story in this. Someone who came here, who was given a chance and an opportunity and earned it and kept it and found his place and was happy. Happiness. Doing good work and working for good people. And then he reflected their generosity and their ideas, and they trusted him as one of the family. And that's it. When you treat people with respect and you treat people with kindness, it works. Because what happens right away? He comes in there, the housekeeper is there. He treats her with respect in the door. Even though she says, Mrs. Biddle isn't home, you have to come back later. She says, well, thank you, I'll be going. Then she says, wait a minute. I hear that. You have the same brogue I do. Where do you hail from? Oh, I know that. Okay. I know that place. When I was a little girl, we came over. Why don't you come inside, have a cup of coffee, sit down. Then we get then hilarity ensues and more musical numbers. But it's the themes, which is what I said at the beginning of the stream. This may not be a Barnstormer super classic musical up there with the likes of Seven Brides, Seven Brothers, Singing in the Rain, all those things. It may not be one of those, but because those were big ass studio productions. This was a small little, at the time, Disney production with a great cast, but not meant to be anything huge. Just try and promote the themes that Walt Disney believed in.
I've also considered Mr. Biddle to be a stand-in for Walt himself. Like, they even look similar. Add a mustache, I could see them being related. Yep. And, yeah, he definitely seems like Disney, at least the front that Disney did publicly.
Think about it like this. Walt Disney believed in America. He believed in faith. He believed in prosperity. He believed in entertainment. He believed in moral values. Mr. Biddle, throughout the whole movie, is saying, we cannot ignore what's going on in Europe. We cannot be isolationists. We cannot not pay attention to what's going on with the war. We have to get it. Walt Disney aspired the same things during his lifetime. Don't ignore things. Don't pretend that they're not happening. Don't be isolationist. Expand your mind. That's a very poignant thing to say, Jed. Mr. Biddle is a stand-in. I agree with you. I think he's a stand-in for Walt Disney. Expand your mind. Don't be closed off to everything. And that's reflective. And that was reflective in that era of live-action Disney movies. Because as we round out here, this comes from a period of time in the late 50s and through the 60s where Disney made tons of live-action movies. This is a forgotten thing. And this is why I criticize some people that go along the lines of, Disney's a girl brand. No, it's a family brand. And you merely have to go back and look at the complete library. Don't just look at the Disney princesses and the animated movies. You look at what they did in about a 20, 25 year, 30 year period where they made these live action family movies based sometimes on other properties like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Swiss Family Robinson. Yes, they did the Disney thing where they did other properties, but then they did this. So essentially, yes, I think there were some children's books based on this, that George and the Happiest Millionaire. There's some stuff on that, but it is essentially an original Disney product, and they got high caliber, beloved, iconic actors and actresses of the time to be in these movies. And there's another movie with David Niven and Jodie Foster where they're hunting for treasure. David Niven and a young Jodie Foster in these movies, and Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell was Mr. Disney.
Oh, he did so many early ones.
He was the original child actor alongside Judy Garland. You know, they were the child actors of those times, and he grew up when Disney was the wholesome thing, and Walt believed in Kurt Russell. I mean, the rumors, as I remember the story saying, Walt Disney wanted Kurt Russell to take over Disney because he believed in everything Walt believed in.
That would have been probably better than what we got.
Oh yeah. But what you had here, though, is that you had this entire library of live action movies that were just wholesome family entertainment. Alongside the Mickey, Donald, Goofy cartoons, along all that stuff, alongside all of that, the animated movies of the era as they came out, there was this, and Disney was wholesome. It was good because Walt Disney crafted it that way, and as we just, I think, stumbled upon, he even inserted himself in there sometimes, with Anthony Biddle being I agree with you, being a direct reflection of Walt Disney. Normally we talk about the soundtrack this time, but we already talked about it because this movie's a musical.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot.
The songs, they are the best ones are when Leslie Ann Warren is doing it because she can actually sing, she can perform.
They do repeat some of the songs a little too many times, I think. So there is some problems with repetition, but generally they're good songs.
And then those who can't really sing, they did the trick back then. They talk sang. Like Fred McMurray did a little talk singing. Greer Garson, little talk singing. Everybody else who could sing was able to sing and pulled it off just fine because back then there was such a thing as multi-talented people. They were multi-talented. They were trained in these things. They weren't just some rando pop artist who decides they want to act, or some rando actor or actress who decides I want to sing to, or a wrestler. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you need to understand these people were fully trained in the classic studio system. They were trained to do this stuff. They weren't just rolled out there because they wanted to do this. Either way, all right. So I have nothing else to really say on this. So
there's one scene that I want to talk on that we briefly mentioned it, but the final scene of the movie in the Biddle house after Cordy's left to elope, before the soldiers show up, before John walks in, just that simple scene of Mr. Biddle, like walking in the house, staring at it, feeling quiet. So lonely. Yeah, very quiet. It's like the only moment in the film that I would say is quiet. And he like notices things he never has, like the creaking of the floorboard, the clock in the sitting room, and it's just him realizing that this house is empty. It almost feels alien to him. Like it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like home without the laughter of his children, and just coming to terms with that before the wife starts singing. Like it becomes a fine scene after that, but just that scene where there's virtually no dialogue and it's just what'd you say his name? Fred McMurray. McMurray. Just his emoting and that scene. A lot of show don't tell. Like I knew exactly what he was thinking and how he was feeling, and it was heartbreaking. And I think that's why I believe that the central plot is him learning to let go of his daughter, because that scene just feels so powerful and poignant, and as the most quiet moment in the film.
Part of his purpose had been raising his family, and now his boys are on their own. They're off at school too, even though it's just regular high school boarding school. It doesn't look like it's college because one of them was way too young to be in college. But now his firstborn, his daughter, is going out to live her life, and what's going to replace? Oh, guess what? Now you get your wish. You get to contribute to the war effort, but then here's the thing: at that last moment, the final scene, here comes everybody else that he's influenced, that he supports, the local community.
His family is so much larger.
Yeah, and they all come in there, and they're, how you doing? And those Marines who, even though one of them got the crap kicked out of him earlier on in the movie, still respects him. Because, hey, you beat me in a fight fair and square. There was no cheating, no nothing like that. And he taught him a lesson, too. And that's the thing, too. There was no disrespect. It was simply, I'm going to show you that I'm good for an old man, and I'm going to teach you a couple things, too. And they come back, and they're proud to have them as their commanding officer. They're proud to have that. And they believe in him so much. Oh, he'll be running things soon. We just might as well get started now. And then, as you said, here comes his actual extended family, the people who he helps provide meaning for. Gives them something to wake up to, something to do. Gives them a connection to society and not otherwise be outcast and not looked down upon, because a lot of the people he helps, as we mentioned earlier, are people who might have been left on the wayside, homeless, destitute, without purpose, may have been driven to do dastardly things if left uncared for. But what did he do? He cared for them. He gave them purpose. He taught them faith. He taught them respect. He taught them discipline through boxing. And they return by showing you're not alone. You still have purpose. You still have things you can teach us and you can share with us. And we like you in our lives, and we want you to continue being a part of everything. And that's a great moment to point out there that it's a great flip. It goes from feeling like everything's gone to realizing you still have so much more. And that connects to what you mentioned earlier, the whole part of living life in that for every little bit of it. There is still so much more for him to do. And it's great. And it's a fantastic, happy, warm feeling to end on in the movie. That the story goes on, the life goes on. Anyway, all right. So, Jed, this was your movie. You get to score it first this week.
Okay, perfect. This is a film that I feel like I might have an undue amount of bias for because of how much nostalgia I have for it as a kid. So I did, of course, try to look at it as objectively as I could. There are some pacing issues. Its runtime is bloated, in my opinion, and they do repeat some of the songs several times, and the plot isn't complicated. It doesn't need to be, but again, it's not anything profound and should be scored as such. So I think I'm being fair giving this a 7 out of 10. Just a really fun movie that isn't supposed to be a thought-provoking one. It's pure escapism for me. It is escapist filmmaking at some of its best, at least for me personally.
Okay, for me, much like Jed watched as a child, I said I watched as a child too. I grew up with this movie. It is something that I consciously know that I subjectively have a very, very warm opinion on it. It is a happy place for me. That being said, there are, as Jed said, problems. Sometimes the songs are not of the highest quality. The musical numbers are not of the highest quality when you compare it to full-on musical production. But they still land, and I forgive them because they are good exposition characters. It is a little long. It does drag on at certain points. I feel the second act probably could have been cut down by 10, 15 minutes because as they're doing some connective tissue stuff, it didn't need to drag on so long. Some of the running gags were okay, like the constantly shifting maids. We didn't talk about that, but it was good for comic relief. At the same time, I love all these characters. I love the relationships. I love the themes. I love the moral aspect of this. And that there's nothing really wrong with this movie. If we're going to complain about stuff, it's from a technical aspect.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like you said, it's not very deep, that doesn't bother me because when I watch this, I'm not looking for deep. I'm looking for warm, fuzzy feelings inside. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to sit back and not think at all and just enjoy a beautiful family, beautiful relationships, and a fun little story about people who just like anybody else deserve happiness, and they find it despite a couple of realistic trials and tribulations. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because I think it's a wonderful movie on its themes and morals and believability in terms of how these characters are relatable. So, all right, that's it. I have not chosen next week's movie yet, but I will say it's going to probably be science fiction or fantasy because that's what I'm in the mood for. I'm layering it down. Jed will know first, and then you guys will know shortly. So until then, guys, thank you all for being here across both channels. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channels, and we shall see you guys later. Until then, guys, take it easy. Have a good night or day wherever you may be.